All right, strap in everyone, because today we're diving headfirst into some serious controversy. We're talking Game 5 of the WNBA Finals, Liberty versus Lynx, championship on the line, tensions high, and a whole lot of questionable stuff went down. You've probably seen the highlights, maybe caught some of the chatter online, but we're going deeper than that. We're figuring out what really happened, why people are still talking about it weeks later, and what it all means for the WNBA.
Yeah, this wasn't just your average nail-biter of a game. This one had everything. Controversial calls, statistical discrepancies that raised eyebrows, and honestly, some really bad optics for the league.
We're not just relying on hot takes for this one.
Yeah.
We've got reports from Sporting News, Bleacher Report, Yahoo Sports, and even a deep dive analysis that really gets into the heart of what's at stake here. And it's bigger than just one game, right? This is about fairness, perception, and the future of a league that's been making some serious strides.
And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. The controversy didn't stay confined to the court. It spilled out into the wider world of sports commentary. Even got some big names from the NBA talking.
Okay, let's rewind to those final seconds of Game 5. Breanna Stewart, one of the best players in the league. She's driving to the basket, game's on the line. And it looks like, from multiple angles, she takes more than 2 steps without dribbling. I mean, a travel, right? Plain and simple. But there's no whistle.
Nope, no whistle. And it doesn't stop there. She goes up for a shot. There's contact with Elena Del Don, and the ref calls a foul. But even in slow motion, the contact looks minimal, almost non-existent.
Minimal is putting it lightly. Sporting News did a whole breakdown, even pulled up the rule book.
Correct.
And the ref's explanation. Del Don wasn't in a legal guarding position. Basically, she didn't have both feet planted facing her opponent, but like she clearly was.
Exactly. And that call, along with the no call on the travel, it gave Stewart 2 free throws. She ties the game, sends it into overtime, and the Liberty end up winning the championship.
You just imagine how Lynx fans felt about that one.
I mean, I can't even imagine. Especially because this wasn't just one bad call. Throughout the entire game, New York shot 25 free throws compared to Minnesota's 8. That's a huge difference.
A huge EE difference, yeah. And it kind of feeds into this suspicion that some WNBA fans have had for a while, that maybe the league favors big market teams like New York. More viewers, more sponsorships, more money for everyone.
Right. The concern is that maybe financial interests are being put ahead of fair play. And whether that's true or not, the perception alone is incredibly damaging.
Yeah, it erodes trust in the league, makes people question the legitimacy of the competition.
And it overshadows the incredible talent and athleticism of the players, which is a shame.
Absolutely. And this controversy didn't stay quiet. It blew up so big that even NBA superstars started weighing in. LeBron James, on Twitter, he flat out said it wasn't a foul, said the players should have been allowed to decide the game.
And LeBron wasn't the only one. Damian Lillard, another NBA All-Star, he commented that it looked like the refs knew the assignment. That's a pretty serious statement, especially coming from someone with his influence.
It's huge, right? When NBA stars start questioning the officiating in another league, it puts the WNBA under a microscope.
Mm-hmm.
And that attention can be good, but it also amplifies the doubts about whether the games are being called fairly.
Definitely. And speaking of putting things under the microscope, we have to talk about Minnesota Lynx coach Cheryl Reeve's post-game press conference. Usually, she's known for being calm, collected, but this time it was like a switch flipped.
Oh yeah, she was furious. You could practically see the steam coming out of her ears.
She didn't hold back at all. She said, "This was stolen from us." And then she even went on to challenge the league. She said, "Bring it on."
That "bring it on" was key. I mean, she knew she was risking a lot by calling out the officials so directly, right? Fines, reprimands, maybe even a suspension.
She absolutely did. But she was so angry, so sure that something wasn't right, that she was willing to put it all on the line, to potentially jeopardize her career, to stand up for what she believed in.
That's powerful. She wasn't just speaking for herself or her team. She was speaking for everyone who cares about the integrity of the game. And it brings us to another layer of this whole controversy, the commissioner's outfit. This one's wild.
Oh yeah, the commissioner's outfit. That's where things get really interesting, and not in a good way for the WNBA. Picture this. The trophy presentation, cameras are flashing, and Commissioner Kathy Engelbert walks out in. Well, let's just say it was a choice.
A choice is a very diplomatic way to put it. Her dress was completely covered in the New York City skyline. The Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, all of it. And this is all happening on the night the New York Liberty just won the championship.
Yeah, the timing wasn't great. Social media absolutely exploded. A lot of fans and analysts saw it as a blatant display of favoritism toward New York. And some former WNBA players even spoke out, saying it was completely inappropriate, especially coming from someone who's supposed to be impartial.
Even if you want to say it was just a fashion faux pas, you have to wonder, did nobody on her team think this might send the wrong message? The optics were just terrible.
That's the problem, right? Intentional or not, that dress played into this suspicion that the WNBA might be prioritizing certain markets over others. It made people question the league's judgment, their awareness, if they were even trying to appear neutral.
So we've got questionable calls, statistical discrepancies that don't add up, NBA stars raising eyebrows, a coach risking her career to speak out, and a commissioner's wardrobe malfunction that broke the internet. It's like a real-life sports drama unfolding before our eyes.
And it's all happening against the backdrop of what was a truly historic season for the WNBA. Record-breaking viewership, the highest-rated finals in 20 years. There's so much momentum, so much potential.
But that's exactly why this controversy is so concerning, right? Is the WNBA putting its future at risk by prioritizing short-term gains over long-term integrity? Because once you lose the trust of your fans, it's really, really hard to get it back.
And that's the question, isn't it? Can the WNBA address these concerns and take steps to make things right? Or will this controversy become a defining moment that casts a shadow over the league? We'll explore that in our next segment. We were talking about how this controversy is happening at a time when the WNBA is actually seeing a ton of growth, right? Record viewership, sold-out games, the league's finally getting the recognition it deserves. But the question is it coming at a cost?
Yeah, that's the thing that's been on my mind too. It feels like the WNBA is at this crossroads. On the one hand, they've got this huge opportunity to build on this momentum, really establish themselves as a major force in pro sports. But then there's this shadow of doubt, this feeling that maybe everything's not as squeaky clean as it should be behind the scenes.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people are watching, waiting to see how the league's going to respond to all of this. Are they going to address these concerns head on, or are they going to just try to sweep it all under the rug and hope everyone forgets about it?
Because, let's be real, it's not just going to magically go away. Fans are passionate, they're invested, and they deserve some answers. And it's not just the fans, either former players, current players, coaches. They've all been pretty vocal about this.
It's a real test for the WNBA's leadership. They have this chance to show that they're listening, that they actually care about the integrity of the game, and that they're willing to make changes to make sure things are fair for everyone.
So what could those changes even look like? Where do they even start with something like this?
Well, I think the first step has to be transparency. They need to acknowledge that there were issues in Game 5, review those calls, and explain their reasoning even if they end up sticking by the original decisions. Just opening up that dialogue would be a huge step towards rebuilding trust.
I totally agree. It's about showing everyone that they're taking these concerns seriously, that they're committed to getting it right. But beyond just talking about it, they need to take some concrete steps to fix things, especially when it comes to officiating.
Absolutely. There are a few things they could do. Invest in better training for the referees, maybe even create a mentorship program where experienced officials work with newer ones.
What about using more technology? I mean, other pro leagues have started using instant replay and other tech to help make calls more accurate. Why not the WNBA?
That's a really good point. It would show fans that they're serious about leveling the playing field, that they're willing to use every tool they have to make sure games are called fairly.
And beyond just the technical stuff, maybe they need to think about how they handle these kinds of controversies in general. Instead of just issuing fines or putting out vague statements, what if they had a more open forum for discussion?
I like that. Maybe something like a panel discussion with refs, players, and coaches where they could all talk about the challenges of officiating and the need for more consistency. It could help create a better understanding between everyone.
I love that idea. Just seeing that the league is willing to have those tough conversations would show a lot of good faith.
It's about acknowledging that mistakes happen, but also showing that they're committed to learning from them and making the league better. Because if they don't, this controversy could have consequences that go way beyond just one game.
It's almost like this has become a defining moment for the WNBA. They have to decide what kind of league they want to be. Do they want to focus on short-term gains, appeasing big market teams and chasing big sponsors? Or do they prioritize the long-term health of the league, which has to be built on fairness, competition, and trust?
Because honestly, those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can be a successful, profitable league A and D be fair and equitable. But it takes work, it takes being open to criticism, and it takes making changes when they're needed.
And I think the WNBA is in a unique position here. They could actually become an example for other pro sports leagues, show everyone that it's possible to be successful financially and still maintain the integrity of the game.
It all comes down to trust. Fans need to trust that the games are being called fairly, that the best team is winning, and that the league is doing everything it can to make things fair.
Yeah, without that trust, the WNBA risks losing all those fans they've worked so hard to gain, and that could really hurt the league in the long run.
This controversy has brought a lot of negativity, but it's also shown how passionate the WNBA community is. The players, the coaches, the fans, they all want this league to succeed, but they want it to succeed for the right reasons.
Cheryl Reeve's words, "Bring it on," have really stuck with me. It's like a call to action, a challenge to the league to step up, to be better, to prove that they're listening and that they're going to make real changes.
I think that's the energy the WNBA needs moving forward. Being fearless, demanding more, not settling for anything less than a league that truly deserves its players and its fans.
So we've unpacked a lot here, but the big question still remains. Where does the WNBA go from here? How do they rebuild trust? How do they address these officiating issues? And how do they make sure this controversy doesn't define their future? We'll talk about that and more in our final segment. So we've really dug deep into this controversy, huh? From those disputed calls to the statistical weirdness, from NBA stars adding their 2 cents to a coach basically putting it all on the line. And then there was that, well, let's just say interesting outfit from the commissioner.
It's been a wild ride, and honestly, it makes me wonder if this could be a real turning point for the WNBA.
A turning point, you say? But like in a good way or a bad way?
That's the big question, isn't it? Will this be the moment they really face these issues head on and make some real changes? Or will they try to just sweep it under the rug and hope everyone forgets about it? Because that seems risky.
Yeah, it does, right? Because it's pretty clear that something needs to change.
Yeah.
Those calls in Game 5, the whole free throw situation, whether it was intentional or not, it just left everyone feeling like things weren't fair.
And that feeling, that lack of trust, that's what's dangerous for the league.
Totally. And if they don't handle this the right way, it could end up overshadowing all the amazing progress the WNBA has been making. I mean, think about it. Record viewership, incredible athletes, a growing fan base. Who wants to see all that get sidetracked?
It would be a real shame, that's for sure. All that momentum, gone, because they weren't willing to be transparent and accountable.
So where do we even go from here? What are some things the WNBA could actually do to fix this, to rebuild that trust, and make sure this whole thing doesn't end up defining them in a negative way?
Well, admitting there's a problem is a good place to start. Just acknowledge that, yeah, there were some issues in Game 5. They're going to take a look at it, and they're listening to the fans.
Right. Show people they're taking it seriously. But listening isn't enough, right? They got to do something too.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
I think a deep dive into the officiating in that game would be a good start. Explain the calls, address why things looked inconsistent, and be open to the possibility that some mistakes were made.
Transparency is key, that's for sure. Even if they end up saying, you know what, the calls were right, just explaining how they got there could go a long way.
Definitely. And they can't stop at just that one game either. They need to step back and look at the bigger picture. Are there problems with the way refs are trained? Are they all interpreting the rules the same way?
We talked about using technology too. Instant replay, other tools that can help make those calls more accurate. Other leagues are doing it. Why not the WNBA?
That's a great point. It would show fans they're serious about leveling the playing field and using every tool they've got to get it right.
And what about accountability for the refs themselves? Are there consequences for making bad calls over and over again, or for showing any kind of bias?
Yeah, that needs a closer look for sure. Maybe more oversight, more training, even having some of the more experienced refs mentor the newer ones, just to make sure everyone's on the same page.
All good ideas.
Yeah.
But beyond just fixing the problems, maybe it's about creating a culture where these things can be talked about openly. More communication, more collaboration.
Absolutely. What if they had regular meetings where players, coaches, and referees could all get together, talk about officiating, how the rules are being applied, any concerns anyone might have?
I like that. It's all about creating a better environment where everyone feels heard and respected.
Exactly. It could prevent a lot of these issues from blowing up into huge controversies.
It feels like this whole thing has been like a wake-up call for the WNBA. Like they're being forced to look in the mirror and make some decisions about who they want to be.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Do they want to be the league that prioritizes quick wins, keeping the big market teams happy, chasing those sponsorships? Or do they want to be the league that puts integrity first, knows that's the foundation for everything else?
Because ultimately, the WNBA's success comes down to one thing: the fans. Do they trust the league? Do they believe it's fair? They've got to earn that trust, not just assume it's there.
Couldn't agree more. And that's why this controversy matters so much. It's a test. Are they going to rise to the occasion, prove that they're committed to getting this right? Or will they let this become the thing that defines them?
I keep thinking back to Cheryl Reeve and that "bring it on." It's like she threw down a gauntlet, challenging the league to step up and do better.
It's the energy they need, that's for sure. Be bold, demand better, and don't settle for anything less than a league that truly supports its players and the people who love the game.
Well said. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, the big question remains: what's next for the WNBA? Will they take this challenge head on? Only time will tell, but I think it's safe to say that a lot of people are watching very closely.
That's the truth. We've covered a lot of ground today, but the conversation isn't over. This is something we're all going to be thinking about, talking about for a while.
And that's our deep dive for today. But we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this whole controversy? What do you think the WNBA needs to do to move forward? Hit us up in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, keep diving deep.